The observation deck of the Zenith Arc hummed with the low thrum of engines, a sound that had become as familiar as breathing to those who called the colony ship home. Lieutenant Mara Solon stood before a semicircle of young beings, her datapad forgotten in her hand as she watched the morning's lesson unfold with careful eyes. The children, if one could call them that, represented 7 different species from the Galactic Coalition. There were the crystalline Vexari twins who chimed softly to each other, 3 Kelid youth with their forearms folded in varying degrees of attention, a pair of amphibious Narthan who kept their breathing apparatuses meticulously clean, and then there was Rin was a Keshtar, a species humanity had encountered only 3 cycles ago during the Coalition's expansion into the outer fringe. The Keshtar were apex predators on their homeworld, feline in appearance with sleek auburn fur that caught the light in ripples, retractable claws, and eyes that could track movement in near-total darkness. They were proud, fierce, and deeply territorial, and Rin was terrified. Mara had noticed it the moment the cub entered her classroom 2 weeks ago. While the other students took their seats in the front rows, eager to learn about Earth's history and humanity's journey to the stars, Rin had slunk to the back corner. The young Keshtar positioned herself behind a structural support beam, ears flat against her skull, tail wrapped tightly around her haunches. The other instructors had warned Mara. "Keshtar cubs don't integrate well," Commander Thrace had said, his tone sympathetic but firm. "They're hunters. Being confined with prey species triggers their instincts. Perhaps separate instruction would be better." But Mara had seen something else in Rin's golden eyes. Not hunger, not aggression, fear. So every morning for 2 weeks, Mara taught her class while Rin stalked the back row. The cub would arrive early before the others and claim her corner. When the other students filed in, Rin's pupils would dilate, her breathing would quicken, and she would press herself against the wall as if trying to disappear into it. Mara never called on her, never drew attention to her. She simply taught, her voice calm and steady, weaving stories of Earth, a world where predators and prey had learned to coexist, where different species lived side by side, where even ancient enemies found common ground. The Vexari found it fascinating. The Kelid found it improbable. The Narthan found it statistically unlikely, and Rin listened from the shadows, her ears swiveling forward despite herself. On the 15th day, Mara made a decision. She arrived to class an hour early, before even Rin typically appeared. She moved her instructor's chair, a simple, cushioned piece that she rarely used, from behind her desk to the side of the room. Not in the back corner where Rin hid, but not in the intimidating front either, a middle ground. When Rin slipped through the door 30 minutes later, she froze. Her nostrils flared, scenting the change in the room's configuration. Her eyes locked onto the moved chair, then tracked to Mara, who sat at her desk reviewing notes as if nothing was different. Rin took her usual position in the back corner. The other students arrived. The lesson began. Mara taught about Earth's biodiversity, about ecosystems where apex predators maintained balance, where the presence of hunters made the herd stronger, healthier. She spoke of wolves and deer, of lions and gazelles, of the intricate dance of survival that wasn't about dominance but about belonging to something larger than oneself. And all morning, Rin watched the chair. It sat empty, innocuous, but its presence spoke in a language Mara had learned during humanity's first contact with species after species, the language of invitation without expectation, of space offered without demand. Midway through the lesson, as Mara displayed a hologram of Earth's Serengeti, Rin moved. Not to the chair, not yet. But she left her corner. She crept along the wall, her paws silent on the deck plating until she was parallel to the chair, still far enough away to run, close enough to touch if she dared. Mara continued teaching, her voice unchanged. The other students were absorbed in the hologram, watching a pride of lions rest beneath an acacia tree while zebras grazed nearby. Neither species bothered by the other's presence in that moment. "Predators don't hunt every moment," Mara said softly. "They rest, they play. They exist in spaces where hunger isn't the only drive, where safety is mutual." Rin's tail twitched. By the time the lesson moved to Earth's domestication of wolves, how humanity's ancestors had invited predators into their caves, had shared their fires, had made family from fangs, Rin had inched closer to the chair. The other students began their individual assignments, breaking into small groups. The room filled with soft chatter, the clink of datapads, the hum of young voices from a dozen worlds, and Rin, finally, approached the chair. She circled it once, twice. Her whiskers quivered as she processed 1,000 scents and signals. Then, with a glance at Mara, who met her eyes briefly and nodded once, nothing more, Rin made her choice. The young Keshtar didn't sit in the chair. That would have been too exposed, too vulnerable. Instead, she curled beside it, her body forming a tight crescent at its base, her head tucked against the chair leg. Her breathing slowed. Her ears, which had been flat for 2 weeks, gradually relaxed upward. Mara continued circulating among her students, answering questions, offering guidance. When her path took her near the chair, she paused just long enough to rest her hand on its back, close to Rin, but not touching. The cub's eyes were half closed, but her tail gave a single, slow swish. Trust, Mara had learned, wasn't given or taken. It was grown. Slowly, patiently, like everything humanity did best. When the lesson ended and the other students filed out, chattering about their assignments, Rin remained curled at the chair's feet. Mara gathered her materials in silence, giving the cub time. Finally, Rin rose, stretched with feline grace, and padded toward the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. Mara smiled. Same time tomorrow, Rin. The cub's ears flicked forward, the Keshtar equivalent of a nod, and she disappeared into the corridor. The chair stayed where Mara had placed it. Tomorrow, perhaps Rin would move a little closer to the other students. Or perhaps not. Humanity had learned long ago that belonging happened at its own pace, and they could wait. They were good at that.